In our first story tonight, the Eskom begging bowl is being held out on a regular basis, and we have to foot the bill with soaring electricity charges. One of the reasons is the skyrocketing budget of the Kusile power station. Debbie Sankari government investigates mind-boggling cost overruns.
Kusile Power Station began construction in 2008. It should have taken at most 6 years to complete. Now, 10 years later, it will only be finished around 2022.
It's taken 10 years to build this power station and it's still not finished. And if you're looking for a reason as to why Eskom wants more money from you, a big part of that answer lies right here behind me.
Kusile was Abra Masango's baby. This Eskom executive impressed the Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises when he testified in February.
I was the project director for the Kusile project for approximately 8 years before being promoted to the position of the group executive.
When Masango testified, he was desperate to get his job back. He had been suspended on charges of corruption and conflict of interest.
These are vague and unsubstantiated allegations which I deny in the strongest terms.
He blamed his former friend, Eskom's Machela Koko, for the allegations and claims that because of his role as a whistleblower, he's been subjected to a campaign of harassment and intimidation, and that his life was in grave danger.
I have no doubt the reason for my suspension was an attempt to silence me, discredit me, and undermine my credibility as a potential witness at Mr. Koko's disciplinary hearing.
For 20 years, these friends rose up the ranks at Eskom. Both wanted the top job of CEO, but they fell out when each accused the other of corruption. Both professed absolute loyalty to Eskom.
For those who know me, I always say my blood is Eskom blue.
Koko was exposed on carte blanche for the optimum prepayment, which at first he denied. Later, he faced a disciplinary for his role on the Impulse International deal, as well as trying to remove Masango's close associates on Kusile. Koko was cleared, but he left Eskom under a cloud. Masango returned to work a few weeks ago after being cleared of all charges by a senior counsel.
It goes without saying that my extensive knowledge and experience can only add value to the power utility at a time when it is in a major crisis.
By November, Koko's reputation was in tatters. So when he alleged Masango was corrupt, no one was listening, except MoneyWeb journalist Antoinette Slabbert.
I got some documents, and what unfolded was a very strange, interesting story of Mr. Koko actually trying to stop corruption at Kusile, which went totally contrary to the popular narrative at that stage.
Now a new forensic report commissioned by Eskom reveals payments made, front companies, properties and vehicles, and how some of the biggest contractors on the Kusile construction site tried to keep Eskom bosses Abra Masango and Frans Schlakudi happy. Frans Schlakudi, whose image is absent from the internet, was contracts manager under Masango.
If Eskom is serious of cleaning up corruption, the number one perpetrator is Abra Masango.
About 2 years ago, Mpumalanga activist Mandla Bothman began to look into a company on Kusile called Vitravine. Eskom had instructed Kusile Civil Works, a joint venture between the big construction companies, to sign a service agreement with Vitravine in 2011.
Vitravine really hit the jackpot on Kusile. They were appointed to do community liaison work, and for the last 7 years, 215 million rands have flowed to this company.
The report shows millions pouring in each month.
The big question is, what is it that Eskom is paying Vitravine to do? Where's the value of it? Why Eskom keeps giving these people an opportunity to give them money while they are doing nothing?
In their response, Vitravine say they have not been officially shown the report, and until such time as they have, they will not be commenting.
This is the company that is working hand in hand with Abra Masango. They're using Beethoven as their looting tool. I'll make an example, your likes of the Business Expo. They are saying it's a business expo, the community that they must benefit there. We are not. The Mandela Day, that's why they are looting a lot of money. There are a lot of activities, sports day. No one is benefiting from there, but they're enriching themselves.
He links threats to make him disappear to Vitrovian.
They say I must not be given any opportunity at Kusile because they think I'm a spy. I'm not a spy, I'm taking them hands on.
Everyone wanted a piece of the Kusile pie, including, it seems, Abra Masango's former business partner, Arani Mahamba, who is still in business with Masango's wife.
Mr. Mahamba, who has a transport company, gets work here at Kusile. Substantial payments are made by Eskom, Tubular and others to Mr. Mahamba's company, and guess what happens next?
Mahamba Transport pays a 600,000 rand deposit on Abra Masango's new Mercedes-Benz. They said they didn't want to deal with our questions, claiming confidential contracts. Masango also claims he saved Eskom money.
During my tenure at Eskom, I successfully managed many projects for the financial benefit of Eskom.
But is that really true? Because the 3 mega projects under his control, Ngula, Kusile and Medupi, have all come in over budget and over time. Way over, as infrastructure economist Dr. Grovius Steyn explains.
Let's go back to the beginning. How much was Kusile going to cost the South African taxpayer?
Some of the earliest budget estimates was for about 80 billion rand. The last budget numbers we had from Eskom about a year ago was that it's now going to cost 161 billion rand. And I expect that budget figure to still increase.
And, says Steyn, due to excess capacity, we don't really need Kusile right now.
I would think it's going to be a whopper with the interest.
Our understanding is that Kusile in 2017 rands will cost 226 billion rands.
Consider this. Eskom is asking us to fill a 66 billion rand hole. But if Masango's projects had come in even modestly over budget, Eskom would not have had to go begging to NERSA to increase its tariffs. Now, all Eskom's new CEO, Pagamani Hadebe, can do is stem the looting.
We told investors that we continue to do the investigations and we are taking decisions whenever we find wrongdoing. We continue on reviewing the contracts, 5,000 of them, and we have covered a lot of ground.
The SIU is also investigating maladministration and any losses or prejudice suffered by Eskom on Ngula, Medupi and Kusile. Meanwhile, Eskom has begun to do lifestyle audits. Frans Schlakudi, who resigned a few months ago, may have been a good place to start because clearly he has a friend in Tenova Mining. Their one contract to construct a conveyor system doubled to 2.1 billion rands, and someone had to sign off those increases. Could that explain why Tenova paid for his family holiday in December? And agreed to his wife's request for business class tickets from Johannesburg to Charles de Gaulle and back.
Tenova Mining said they were surprised by our letter when we asked them why they'd paid for a holiday for Frans Schlakudi and his family. They never answered the question, but then again, how do you explain that you paid for the contracts manager on Kusile to spend 19 days on the French Caribbean?
This dam, hidden on a farm in the middle of nowhere, was built by Eskom. Why? They have a contract to build the underground terraces on Kusile in Mpumalanga, and that would surely not include a dam on Frans Schlakudi's private chicken farm in Limpopo. But this listed company was sending emails to Frans asking if he was happy with the construction. Their price to Eskom ballooned from 342 million rands to 1.9 billion. Perhaps they needed their variation orders approved.
Hi, how are you? Fine. I need to see Wessel van Zyl.
CEO Wessel van Zyl sent us an email and said that at all times Eskom has acted legally and properly in its conduct at Kusile and vehemently denies any allegations of assistance to Eskom employees. He offered no explanation for the dam. Eskom may also struggle to explain why they paid over R1 million to Masango's accountants company, who in turn paid for the chicken house curtains on Frans Hlakhudi's farm. So indirectly, your electricity tariff is paying for chicken house curtains via a listed construction company.
Behind me is Tubular Construction. They managed to get the contract to build the last 3 huge air-cooled condensers on Kusile. These are like large radiators.
In 2015, Tubular was in financial trouble. The report finds that it did not benefit Eskom to give Tubular the contract. Yet, Masango and Hlakhudi recommended that Eskom should remove the contract from Alstom and give it to Tubular.
In short, they kicked out Alstom and Eskom started dealing directly with Tubular.
But how do you get a contractor out?
You pay him the profit that he would have made. Eskom paid Alstom the profit that it would have made if it concluded the contract. In other words, you don't do the job, but you get the profit. So there's absolutely no risk.
In an affidavit, a Tubular whistleblower says the plan was to keep the initial price low so Hlakhudi could sign the contract. And then Tubular would later create false claims or variation orders to generate new income to 1.5 billion rands. And that is almost exactly what happened.
That contract between Eskom and Tubular, that was deliberately kept just above 700 million. 2 years later, that was increased to 1.2 billion.
Masango says he supported the decision to de-scope Tubular, which he says was made by various committees and the Eskom board. He claims the decision was to avoid claims totaling 56 billion rands against Eskom, as well as retrenchments by Tubular. What is more difficult to explain is why Tubular paid 20 million rands into Hlakhudi's business account, Hlakhudi Translation Services, after the deal was concluded.
But how do we know that Frans Hlakhudi was actually benefiting now from this Tubular contract?
Well, we saw bank statements. To give you an idea, in 1 month in 2015, there was 500,000 withdrawn in cash. In 2016, in May, it was 3 million cash in total withdrawn.
The report notes that after Tubular was awarded the contract, Masango and Hlakhudi made substantial payments towards the purchase price of various properties. And Hlakhudi renovated his home at a cost of 7.6 million rands.
Tubular denies paying any bribes. In this letter to us, they say the overwhelming conclusion is that none of Tubular's social upliftment activities can be classified as a bribe.
Hlakhudi also denies all the allegations against him, including any impropriety in his dealings with Tubular. He says he made full disclosure to Eskom of his outside interests, and allegations against him were part of a smear campaign. Since he left Eskom, Hlakhudi is expanding his chicken empire, and there is speculation that Abra Masango may soon be promoted.